Hello and welcome. In this class, we'll talk about the second half of the 20th century. Before talking about the second half of the 20th century, let me talk about the first half and before. In the first half and before, we talk about the writings of those white Americans. We talk about the American culture. We talk about the American dream, in which it was portrayed that a person who lives in America is prosperous, is quite relaxed, is quite enjoying his life. So it was the notion that a person who lives with the whites, they are completely free from all responsibilities and all problems. So it is inbuilt in the blood and the soul of those whites that they feel themselves as superior and others as inferior. But in the second half of this 20th century, when those marginalized writers, they started to write. When they started to write and they started to react against the writings of those whites, how they have presented the writers of those other cultures. Like the white writer, he has portrayed whites as happy and blacks and the colored ones as they are sad. He has shown them as they are not civilized. He has shown them as they are unequal with us. There is some inequality among them. But at the same time, when we talk about this shift, which took place in 1980s, the writers from the marginalized area, they got up and they started to write and they started to react and they started to research what has been written on them. And we have the mentality of those white writers before this, like we have Rudyard Kipling. What Rudyard Kipling says? Rudyard Kipling says that it is the white man's burden to civilize non-whites. So in other words, he wants to say that we are the chosen people, we are the people of God. And those others who are not white, who are non-whites, they are uncivilized. So God has given us the responsibility because we are superior in our dressing, we are superior in our speaking, we are superior in our looks, we are superior in our literature, we are superior in other manners too. And we have to civilize others to be like us. So we are having the upper hand, we are having the ruling hand. But at the same time, so how they used to present them in their writings, the others, they were simply accepting it. But now in 1980s, now it has taken a shift. Now we could see in 1980s we have the marginalized writers, they are getting the recognition. They got the recognition and the new perspectives has been defined. They started to define new perspectives. They started to define new values of the society. Now they started to talk about race, they started to talk about gender, they started to talk about color, they started to talk about inequality, they started to talk about all stereotypes, and they started to talk about culture and justice. So after this shift, we could see that there are writers who were the leading writers of it. Today, I will not talk about post-colonial writings. I will talk about a single writer, that is Toni Morrison. In her writings, Toni Morrison, who was born in USA, Ohio, in back 1931. She lived up to 2019 and she got the Nobel Prize on back 1993. She received her Pulitzer Prize on the novel Beloved in 1987. She was the writer who is known that she has the powerful exploration of Afro-American life. She also knows the effects of slavery and racism on those black writers and African psychology. Now we could see her focus was on the emotional and psychological perspectives of those black writers. So she has portrayed the blacks as how the white mentality had suppressed them, as well as she also used symbols and fiction. We could say she also used symbols, fiction, folklore, and poetic language with different themes. The famous works of this novel, the famous works of this writer, Toni Morrison, starts with Sula, 1973. She has the Songs of Solomon, 1977. She has the novel Like Beloved in 1987. She has the novel God Help the Child back in 2015. Today, I will talk about this God Save, God Help the Child. In this novel, we have a character, we have the protagonist's bride. The protagonist, when she is gone, her mother over there, when she looks at her own child, who the mother also is black in color, but the girl which she has given birth is also black. But she is more darker than it. When we see the mother starts to have the difference, or we can say a distance from her own child. She does not like the child because of her dark